Welcome to the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show, where you get advice you can trust. From home selling tips to investing, this is the talk show that will help you make the most money when selling your most valuable asset and save the most money when buying. Now here are your hosts, Dave McKay, along with Wally Kerr, broker and founder of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty in Oklahoma City.
Well, hello, Wally and Cindy. It's the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show. First off, how was Thanksgiving?
Fantastic, right?
It was incredible because our son and daughter-in-law hosted and they did the cooking.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
You just showed up with an empty belly, right?
Well, and I did provide green beans almondine, but that was it. So I loved it.
Our daughter-in-law is an amazing cook, Holly. It was Black Friday. I don't see any battle scars on your face today. You're not bleeding anywhere. How did you survive Black Friday?
By staying in.
Do you do your shopping online like we do?
I do for the most part. I try to get out and get a couple of things, but mostly I do a lot of online shopping.
I love that.
But you weren't standing in a parking lot in line at 4 a.m. or anything,
No,
right? Okay.
no, those days are behind me. Yeah, I'll leave those to the kids. Let them do all that. Well, today's show, as always, is brought to you by Best Protect Roofing and Construction and by Chris Doke with Gateway Mortgage. Wally, what do we have on tap for today?
Now we're going to have some fun. And we're going to talk seriously about a few things. We'll talk a little about the market, but not as much about the market and the Fed or housing values and what to do to get ready to buy or sell. Yeah, we'll always have some mentions. But this week, first of all, Dave, we're going to have a guest visit very shortly with Chris Doke. Talk about interest rates and what they're doing, because that's on top of everyone's mind today.
Yes.
Everybody wants to know what rates are doing. There is some pretty good news there. Cindy's got a good, funny story of the week this week. And then I've got something fun called Wacky but True Real Estate Facts that we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
I think we'll enjoy that. And also, can you tell me what the 5 golden rules are for property investing?
I bet I can after this show.
After the show.
Okay.
And then Cindy's got 6 tips for how to bring down your mortgage rate. We've got a lot to cover here in the next hour.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you can't catch the show live, all episodes are available for download in all the major podcast apps and at wallytalkshouses.com, where you'll find a summary for each show. You can scroll through, select just the whole show, topics you want to hear. And don't forget, our show repeats Sundays at noon on KOKC.
And it's a repeat, so if there's something you like on the show today, maybe you've got somebody you'd like to share it with without having to download the show, join us again.
We'll be right back with Cindy's funny story of the week right after this.
The market is shifting. Do you know what to do? If you're selling a home, you need to realize that market demand is changing, and it's changing now. More homes are coming on the market than homes that are actually selling, so the inventory is going up. What does rising inventory mean? Prices can soften. It's important you get on the train right now and understand what you need to do to sell a home. First of all, my guaranteed home sale program will create more demand for your home because I can buy someone else's home so that they can buy yours. If you're thinking about selling by owner, I can create more demand for your home than you can ever create on your own. I'm Wally Kerr, and I believe in aggressive marketing. My wife and I have done this for 36 years together, and we now have a team of 28 people. If you'd like to create more demand for your home so that your home will sell faster and for top dollar, give me a call today at 405-330-4000 at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. I'd love to meet with you and discuss a strategy and plan for getting your home sold. Call me at 330-4000. I look forward to talking to you myself.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful, from knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Doke with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2276. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233. Equal housing lender.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
If you or a family member will be selling or buying a home and would like to schedule an appointment with Wally, call 405-330-3000 or go to wallysguarantee.com. Now back to the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally Kerr.
Before we get to Chris Doke, he's going to be our special guest today. Cindy, I heard something about a mynah bird, and now you have our funny story of the week. Tell us about that.
Well, it was actually a parrot.
Okay.
And I had a listing in California. And of course, whenever we go in to show one of our listings, we knock on the door and we announce.
Want to make sure you don't catch
Walk
somebody
in
the
on
shower.
somebody,
Right.
yes. So we announce, hey, broker. Didn't know that this lady, Sherry and Brian were their names, that she had a parrot. And this parrot spoke exactly like her in its voice. And so
wow.
I said, broker Sherry, knocking on the door, and the parrot said, hello, in Sherry's voice. And I said, Sherry, here to show your house. Hello, there goes the parrot. It took me a while with my customers to figure out that I am talking to a parrot.
Did you go inside?
Yeah, I finally did and saw this parrot I'm talking to. And I can tell you that this parrot had Sherry's voice. So the funny thing was, after I sold that listing, I got to be really good friends with Sherry and Brian. And I ended up babysitting this parrot when they were on vacation. And every time my telephone rang, this parrot would say, hello.
Dave, I've been married to Cindy for 28 years. I don't know. I think that story's for the birds.
Oh, my goodness. That's fantastic. And after being Turkey Week as well.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Well, now we're joined by our special guest. It's not a special guest. He's a regular. He's with us all the time. He's a very special guy, though. It's Chris Doke with Gateway Mortgage. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Dave, great to be with y'all as always.
We were talking a little bit earlier about Thanksgiving and everything we got to do with our families. How was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, just awesome. It is I don't know about you guys, but my favorite holiday of the year. I love it. Love the football, love the weather, love the food, and no presents. So,
There you go.
Yeah, most people don't know. Chris, you have 5 daughters.
5 daughters, and that comes with lots of presents, Wally.
Oh, wow.
Well,
God bless you,
You
Chris.
see, we've got him on a Saturday here again,
That's right.
and it is
That's
holiday weekend, and we've got Chris working. Chris, you could use a couple of loan applications today here, couldn't you, on a Saturday?
We got to fill some wedding funds for sure.
I was just going to say those weddings are going to be off the charts.
Yeah, and we need those rates to keep going down like they have been, huh, Wally?
Chris, talk to us a little bit about, so there's been some hubbub, and you and I are aware, and there have been some economic indicators. First of all, employment slowed down some, and that was news to the Fed that perhaps the job market is cooling a little bit. And I think the mortgage rate market really liked that. It's kind of the news that the Fed was looking for, right, Chris? They're looking for things to slow down a little bit, but when you see just hundreds of thousands of people getting jobs, the first thing you think is, well, that's going to lead to spending, and spending could lead to inflation. So talk to us just a little bit, if you would, about what happened here over the last 2 weeks. And I believe that mortgage rates have come down a bit. Can you expand on that?
I think, honestly, Wally, it started with the Fed not raising their rate again for the second straight month. And I think the sentiment is, now this is not tried and true and gospel yet, I think the sentiment is that they may be done raising their rate, and that you could even start to potentially see towards the late spring of next year, even maybe the first cut. And so I think that started the trend and started moving numbers down again. Like you said, though, why did they do that? And I think based upon some of the information they've seen, it's made them think that inflation is being curbed potentially and driving them to the decision of potentially being done raising the rate, which was their rate.
We talked about that on the show with Dave last week, and that was that it was the second month in a row where the consumer price index only showed about a 0.2% increase, which kind of looks like falling between 2 and 3% annually, and that's just also good news. So I think that the news that's coming out of economics and hopefully out of the Fed is that things are going to get better potentially into, I mean, we're not talking about the next 30, 60, 90 days, but we're talking about probably spring, maybe a little earlier in spring, or maybe into the summer. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been amazing to watch, Wally. I agree with your timing on that, but it is amazing to watch. The public has been very in tune with what is happening rate-wise. And just in the last 2 weeks, we've started to see more people inquire about mortgages than we had the couple weeks prior after they had really increased quite a bit. So they're educated, they're in tune, and there's no doubt what they're looking for. And we're starting to see that come into play with more and more people inquiring about potentially getting a mortgage.
Government-backed mortgage rates could potentially be cheaper. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, it's really lender-specific, Wally. And what I mean by that is everybody, for the most part, on these Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae rates are obtaining raw pricing at the same price. But lenders are putting it on the market with different margins, okay? And so it can be, typically the perception has been that an FHA, a VA, a USDA loan could have a lower rate than a conventional loan. And I think sometimes that is the case, but in general, it's really up to the lender as to how they want to price that.
All right, good. So Chris, you've seen, you called me last week, and I think you shared with me that you had a good borrower, not a really big loan amount. I think you said it was $200,000 or less.
Right.
And that specific borrower, in their case, was able to get a rate around 7%. Then you talked to me about another borrower, and maybe that rate was up in the high sevens. So it is credit specific and very much tied to each individual's own financial
credit worthiness.
Right. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Right, Chris? So we're going to talk about that a little bit in our show today with Cindy about ways to get, a lower mortgage rate. And we'll talk about that after your visit today. What should people know right now in the market, Chris?
I think the important piece from a rate perspective is there's no doubt they came down in some instances, Wally, almost a point, and in other instances, a half a point. So a half point to a point, we saw them come down in a week, which is amazing. We were definitely seeing, I saw one that was right in the 7% range, and then some in between that up to the higher 7. So what plays into that? Credit score, loan to value, loan program, and loan amount. That's another specific one that people forget about that plays into the credit worthiness or the credit rating that provides the rate.
Chris, is there a kind of a sweet spot in loan amount that provides a lower rate?
It's interesting. We have seen on the conventional side that Fannie Mae has been more apt to price better or have less what we call rate adjustments for loan amounts in the lower than 200,000, so in that 100 to 200 range, we've seen them be more apt to price those a little bit better. And honestly, Cindy, I don't know if that's maybe the thought of like, hey, that's more first-time home buyers, so we want to give a little bit more incentive from that perspective. Sure, it could be the case. That absolutely could be the case.
It seems like more confidence from buyers, obviously, and then like what you mentioned, the forecast going into next spring. It's going to be Katie bar the door, because if those rates start to come down and people have a lot of equity in these homes that purchased in the last 5-6 years.
I don't think we're going to suddenly see rates fall from 7 to 5.5 in only a very short 3 or 4 month period.
Well,
So get your crystal ball out there, Chris, and warm that baby up. It's getting cold outside. You need to warm your hands up today anyway. What's that crystal ball look like from a lender's perspective as far as how quickly do you think these rates could actually fall back? And do you think a lot of that has to do with what the U.S. economy is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, my uneducated opinion from a rate perspective is typically if the market and the economy is doing worse, typically the rates get better and then vice versa, okay? And so when you see the markets have a great day, then you typically see rates not have a great day. And so I just think, Wally, we're heading into a time where I think we've hit the peak and we are heading down from a rate perspective. What can they look like percentage-wise? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they were into the potentially 6s in the springtime, and if the Fed does start to cut the rates, that we start to see some movement there. But I think at the end of the day, Wally, it also goes back to what we've talked about, which is what was it like a couple years ago when we had 30 offers on a property and people were fighting, and people didn't have a bunch of extra cash, and so they were losing out on deals. As these rates have fallen, I keep saying now is the time to buy, because you're going to get better deals potentially than at the point where borrowers flood the market a little bit more.
And somebody could refinance, couldn't they, Chris, if rates come down significantly?
100%, Cindy. And so I think if they can handle the payments, and not just like get by, but like really handle the payment, like in a good way to where it doesn't jeopardize them financially, obviously. I think if they can do that and they find the house they want, go buy it and refinance it. If they're for some reason down into the fives for, at the mid to end next year, absolutely go refinance it. But at least they got the house they wanted,
right,
and they were able to get it rather than have to bid against a bunch of different people.
It seems to me next spring being the perfect time of the year if the economy like right now isn't at its best, and you mentioned when it's not at its best, rates are better because maybe people are holding back their spending overall on all kinds of economic factors and things across the board, not just housing. But if people are saving that money a little bit, that's what I'm saying. I think in spring, if those rates do come down a little bit and people get in just before a lot of spending and those rates start to go up, which means the mortgage rates start to go up because the economy is better and all the 27 different factors that goes into it. And I know like 2 of them. So it could be a really good time for buyers come next spring. Is that correct?
And even good time for buyers right now, right, Chris? You and I are seeing quite a few sellers 100%. Who are contributing to either buy down costs for a lower starting interest rate or even help with closing costs because sellers are motivated to sell and there are fewer buyers there. I know it's hard for people to buy in and hear us say that it's still a good time to buy when rates are 7 or 7.5 or whatever they are based on, again, their financial ability. The truth is, if you can get some help, you probably won't get that help in the spring. When the market takes off,
that's where.
Whether it's the spring or the summer or next fall or whatever that is, when those rates come down, we all know there's a lot of built-up shadow demand.
Pent-up demand is going to really raise its head in the spring, and you're going to be competing with so many other buyers.
And the chances of getting those closing costs paid, maybe getting a buy down for a lower rate is going to be harder to get. So this is why we've talked on our show here over the last 4 to 6 to 8 weeks or so about, hey, rates are up a little bit, but think about how this can benefit you by buying when there are fewer buyers inside the marketplace.
Wally, I had a borrower just last week that contracted, and we were locking in his interest rate, and he said, hey, Chris, I've been shopping since 2021. But in 2021 and even into 2022, I was going against so many people, I couldn't win any deals.
Gosh.
And now I did find the house that I really want, and I am contracting, and my rate is going to be higher. But I mean, this is a real life example that happened. He was telling me this last week, and I couldn't, I was like, oh my gosh, you're the exact example we're talking about. He said, I know when these rates come down that the prices are going to increase next year, and I'm not going to be able to compete with those people. And so found the house, contracted, and I'll refinance at that point.
Chris, the last thing I would say is you and I are aware that the market peaked in April of 2022. That's when the demand really went bonkers. Prices went up, and for the most part, that was as high as prices had gotten inside the marketplace. Think about that. April. School is not out. It's April of 2022, and the market's peaking. So this tells our listeners that if they're thinking about buying and maybe waiting until spring, that they could expect, depending on what rates are doing, for the market to really begin to peak in April. It's kind of after spring break. It's those who want to buy and they don't wait until June or July when the kids are out of school. Cindy, for you and me, for the 30 years we've been working together, 28, 30 years, we've always seen right after spring break, it gets really busy in April, May, June, and July. So I think this is just a good testament to the fact that it may happen earlier in the spring, and that may be when those bidding wars start, and we're almost in December. So this is coming around the corner pretty quickly.
Yeah, you're right.
I have a question for you, Chris. Do you have any protections for people who are taking out a loan in terms of not only locks, but are there any float down options or anything where a borrower could take advantage of a changing
great
interest
question.
rate?
Great question. So in the instance in which the closing is greater than 60 days, whether it's on construction or non-construction, whatever it may be, if it's longer than that and they need a 90-day lock, we absolutely provide a float down and protection in that instance. And we've been able to go back and renegotiate on some pricing, with the good decrease in the last week or so. So in an instance like that, and been able to float down when it was necessary and they were within 60 days of closing.
And I'm sure you can, when people call, you can tell them more about that.
Absolutely.
Well,
ma'am.
great information from Chris Doke with Gateway Mortgage today. And Chris, if someone wants to call right now and reach you or your weekend warriors, I love that. What's the number they should call?
405-253-2276, 405-253-2276, Dave.
Do you have anybody available this weekend, Chris?
They can always get a hold of me if they had to at that number, but I am giving my team the Thanksgiving weekend off to spend some time with family, but
Us too.
we're available, nearly every weekend all year long. So,
Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you being on today.
Thank you, Chris.
thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
To schedule an appointment with Wally Kerr to help you or a family member buy or sell a home, call or text at 405-330-3000 or go to wallysguarantee.com. Wally will be right back with more of the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show right here on KOKC.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful. From knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Doke with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2276. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233. Equal housing lender.
I'm Wally Kerr, and if you didn't know, there are 6 big reasons why homeowners like you choose to list their home for sale with us. First is our offer to sell your home at a price agreeable to you, or we'll buy it ourselves. How can we do this? It's reason number 2. We have hundreds of pre-vetted home buyers waiting for their dream home to come available. That home may be yours. I'll show you our list of buyers when we meet. Our partnership with Zillow is reason number 3. Zillow chose our team to help dozens of ready home buyers each and every month. Reasons 4 and 5, MLS data shows that our listings have sold faster and for more money on average for 4 years in a row. But don't take my word for it. We have hundreds of online reviews at both Google and Zillow. See what our customers say about us. I'm a 35-year broker with over 4,000 home closings. My team and I are ready to work for you. Call me at 405-330-3000 at your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, or simply visit wallyhasthebuyers.com. I look forward to talking to you myself. Call me at 330-3000. 330-3000.
If you or a family member will be selling or buying a home and would like to schedule an appointment with Wally, call 405-330-3000 or go to wallysguarantee.com. Now back to the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally Kerr.
Well, a lot of great tips last segment with Chris Doke with Gateway Mortgage. Fascinating guy.
There's a lot to be said about experience and knowledge and expertise, which is what we try to offer our customers. And
Plus,
so,
he's got 5 daughters. Is that what you said? Oh,
well,
my
that
goodness. Bless
probably
him.
leads to a lot more knowledge. Just being a dad. I would think you'd need to be pretty wise with 5 daughters.
Yes. Well, we're going to speak to someone wise right now, and she's sitting across the desk from me, and she has a lot of knowledge, over 30 years worth of experiential knowledge. I made up that word, but it sounds like
good.
Yes,
I like
it sounds
it.
good. We're going to talk house talk with Cindy. 6 crucial tips for bringing down your mortgage rate. So this is going to be interesting.
That's right. We've got 6 things you can do or you can be working on to get your mortgage rate lower. And here they are, and then I'll talk about them in detail.
Okay.
You can pay off debt and raise your credit score. You can make a larger down payment, and I'll give you some ideas on where to get that money. You can buy mortgage points, and that's different from a buy down. People
Okay.
get those confused. Consider new construction. You can compare lenders, and I'm not going to say pit them against each other, but I will say make them compete for your business.
Okay.
And then shop around for the best loan program.
That's a mouthful. That's a lot of good topics that we're going to talk about today. So let's spend a couple minutes on each. And I think your first one was paying off debt to raise your credit score.
That's right. And we listen to Dave Ramsey a lot, and he talks about that debt snowball. So it's one thing to say, how do you pay off debt? Boy, that is just a huge mountain. But one way to do it is to look at all your debts from the shortest to the longest, meaning the shortest time period to pay it off to the longest, not the smallest payment. So if you group them that way and you start attacking the one that has the shortest time period, and you make full payments on that or apply extra money to it and then make minimum payments on the rest, you're going to end up paying that first debt off. And then you can take that money and apply it to the second shortest time period debt.
Just rolls into the next one.
Yes. And you can see where that becomes a snowball rolling down a hill. And then you do that for the third one once the first two are paid off. It's kind of like the old adage, how do you eat a whale? One bite at a time.
That makes total sense. It'd be easy just to coast along, make the minimum payment because you're spending money on other stuff. But if you can, like we mentioned, slow down your Starbucks consumption and maybe some, going out and eating at restaurants every once in a while, just kind of bring that back a little bit. Start piling that money on those payments. It's really going to take off. And your credit score, I would think it gets better and better. Does a minimum payment, that doesn't really help. We have to keep kind of
we got to try to get those paid off. And as an example, Lending Tree says the average credit card interest rate is 24.5%.
That's where they get you.
Oh my gosh.
So just beginning to chew off, and you're saying the shortest term debts. So
Correct.
If you've got 6 months left or 8 months, but another one is a year and a half or 2 years, you want to start whacking away quicker at that debt that would be paid off sooner.
That's
to get that
exactly
totally
right.
off your credit report and then start on the other ones.
And use
right?
all that money towards the second one while always making minimum payments on all of them. So you don't have a ding on your credit. Another one is making a larger down payment. If you put down 20%, now you're going to avoid, you hear about this private mortgage insurance, and really that doesn't do you any good at all. All it does is just provide insurance for your lender in case you default. And so what you want to do is you want to try to get to that 20% down payment. And where do you get that money? And a lot of people don't think about the fact that you can get a gift from not only relatives, but also friends.
Okay.
Now, you do have to have some very specific documentation on that. Number one, the giver has to give you a letter that says it doesn't have to be paid off. You have to keep a copy of the check, and you also have to document that those funds went in your bank account, and the lender's going to need to see a copy of your bank statement where those funds went in.
I think the only thing I'd add to what Cindy said is the 20% down isn't a requirement, but you do get a better rate because you're showing the lender that you're a better credit risk, that you're a good money manager, that you've saved up some money. You're not asking to be loaned 96.5%. That's a 3.5% down payment.
Sure.
But I think what she's saying is with 20% down, your lender just looks at you as being a better credit risk, which can in turn get you a better mortgage rate, right, Cindy?
That's exactly right. And another one is not only using that gifted money for a down payment, but perhaps you could use that money to buy points to lower your mortgage rate. And so there's always this confusion. What are points and how do they differ from a buy down? We've been talking about buy downs, which provide a much lower payment the first couple of years, but points are actually 1% of the loan amount. In case you're borrowing $100,000, that would be $1,000, and it lowers the overall interest rate of your loan for the entire term, but only about 0.25%. So it's not going to provide that huge payment relief in the first few years. But if you are somebody who's really interested in staying and wants to see how much you could save on your overall interest, then points might be the way to go. And they're also deductible because they're interest in the year of purchase. So that's another positive about points.
So let me ask you this question. If you're buying, let's say, about a $400,000 home and you have a gift, or maybe you have $10,000 in savings over here that you can part with, that's going to be what, about 2.5 points, which would equate to, is that about a 0.5 percentage point, or what do you think that's going to equate to?
That's a great question and so pertinent to what Cindy's talking about. So yeah, she just mentioned that 1 point, which if you're borrowing $400,000, 1.1% is $4,000,
Yes.
right? So on that $4,000, you might see a reduction in your interest rate. And we're not lenders, so we're not allowed to quote these things, but maybe that would be a quarter point off your interest rate for 1 point. So yeah, Dave, I think you're right. If you had $10,000 and 1 point was going to be $4,000, gives you money to buy about 2.5 points. And my guess is that's going to take about 0.5 to 0.75% off of your interest rate, which that'd be pretty substantial on a $400,000 loan as to how much you would save per month. There's always been this quick equation that says don't buy points unless you're going to live in your home 4 or 5 years or longer, because it won't make sense to give the lender that money up front to get that lower payment. You need to be able to realize that over time.
Okay. So over time, you're going to save
So
that
buying
money.
points depends on how long you're going to live there.
That's right. And it's going to achieve interest savings over a long period of time.
Right.
But the buy down is going to give you payment relief in the first few years. So really it depends on what your needs are. Another tip is to shop lenders to get the best possible deal. You know, there are fewer buyers right now. And you heard Chris talking about lender-specific amounts of interest. So they are competing, and these lenders are competing for good credit-worthy borrowers. So shopping lenders is a great way to lower your interest rate. I was thinking back on my very first house in California back in the 1980s. I paid $34,000 for that house, and my payment was $241 a month. And I remember sitting there with that banker thinking, yikes, how am I ever going to make this payment? And you know what was interesting is when they qualified me, of course, I was in my 20s, that lender said to me, Cindy, we're only going to count half your income towards qualifying because you're, quote, within childbearing years.
Oh, discrimination.
Can you believe that? How far we've come. I'll never forget those words. So,
well, how far we've come that you can get a house in California for $34,000.
Yeah, there you go.
That house now, oh my. Who knows?
1 million.
Well, I certainly see where fewer buyers in the market could lead to the willingness of many lenders to compete for your business. I love the competition.
Oh, yes. And finally, shop different loans. You know, Chris talked about this. He talked about government loans perhaps being a lower interest rate. For example, conventional loans. We were quoted last week with a minimum credit score of 760 with a borrower purchasing a $200,000 home. The conventional rate was 7.5. With an FHA loan, which only requires 3.5% down, the rate was 7%. And a VA loan, that's for qualifying veterans, that rate was 7.125. So this FHA and VA loans could have lower rates, and they also have higher qualifying ratios. And what does that mean? That means that you could have higher debts, which we're not totally recommending, but they will qualify you with more debt and not having to make as much income. So it might be easier to qualify for the loan on those.
It's good to hear Cindy's weekly wisdom. Wally's weekly wisdom coming up next, back in 2 minutes. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful, from knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Doke with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2276. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233. Equal housing lender.
Looking for your dream home? They're hard to find right now, aren't they? The best homes are being gobbled up quickly by home buyers like you who are finding the best homes at the best prices before you can get to them. Feeling frustrated? Stop the insanity and get on board with a real estate team that will do the work for you. We've got access to off-market homes that other agents don't know about and other buyers can't find. Why? My Guaranteed Home Sale program brings me home sellers every week who would like me to buy their home right now. We call it shadow inventory. Many of these sellers are ready to sell, but just aren't ready to put their home on the market. Some of them want the process to be quick and easy without having to get their home ready and endure a string of showings. Make sense? If you'd like to access these homes and other off-market properties, call me today. Tell me you heard the show when you call. Let's find your perfect home together. I'm Wally Kerr at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, 330-3000. Call me today at 330-3000.
If you or a family member will be selling or buying a home and would like to schedule an appointment with Wally, call 405-330-3000 or go to wallysguarantee.com. Now back to the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally Kerr.
It was hard to eat all of my turkey sandwich in that 2-minute break. You saw I'm bringing the leftovers with me. So during the break, Wally, you told me that you and Cindy want to share something before we get into Wally's Weekly Wisdom.
So it kind of ties in with Weekly Wisdom this week, Dave, but I want to talk briefly about the 5 golden rules for buying investment property. There's a lot of people looking to buy investments right now, and these make sense, but it's doubtful that anyone could tell me all 5 without really spending some time to think about it. So the truth is, 90% of the world's millionaires became rich thanks to real estate. So let's explore the 5 golden rules when buying an investment property and just a little bit of discussion on each one. Let's start with always trying to buy from a motivated seller. Now that probably makes absolute sense, right?
Yes.
I think it's best to remember that opportunities always come around. Building the right portfolio is important. For instance, Cindy and I have got a couple of duplexes. We've got some single family. We own homes in Norman. We own homes in Moore. We own homes in Edmond. So we've diversified our portfolio a bit. And don't ever buy on emotions. You want to buy from that motivated seller who's willing to give you a good price. Maybe you've got the cash. You've got your financing laid out. Few investors buy on emotion. So number 1 on the list of the 5 golden rules would be always buying from a motivated seller.
And you know, it's also important to buy in an area of strong demand. Someday you're going to want to sell that property. And I'll tell you what, location. So it's all about an area that's in demand.
And what's it going to look like in 10 or 15 years, right?
That's right.
How is the neighborhood, being taken care of? The next one on our list is only ever buy a property that gives you positive cash flow.
Okay.
Now, admittedly, we bought one of our Edmond properties years ago and put it on a 10-year mortgage, didn't we, Cindy, so that we could pay it off really fast. But the truth was we were taking our cash flows from our other rental properties and taking that positive cash flow and throwing it against that 10-year mortgage. We paid that one off really, really fast. So buy a property that's got a good cash flow. Investors are less likely to be in love with the property and more likely to be buying it for a purpose, like buying a stock or a fund to complement your investment portfolio.
Okay.
And you want to buy property for the long term. And I think Wally shared that quote. T. Harv Eker, who has helped over 2 million people achieve financial freedom. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait.
Yes.
And that's really what Wally and I have done. We have tried to get our properties paid off so that in retirement, we've got a retirement income.
Yeah, we bought these to hold long term, but that doesn't mean we don't do a 1031 tax exchange once in a while to get rid of an older property and trade into something newer. And I think the last one I'd share on these 5 golden rules is just to have a cash buffer in place. We talked about this in the show last week, right, Cindy? Look out. Mr. Murphy's going to move into your spare bedroom if you don't have some money saved and you buy a home. And this would also apply to investment properties.
Absolutely. And, we've seen things like sewer lines that need to be replaced, appliances that go bad, heat and air. These are all things that are going to come up as an owner, and you have to be able to get those fixed for your tenant.
So would that be your slush fund, Wally?
That's the slush fund. That's it.
Right.
Get that slushy going before you go buy your first investment property to make sure that you can maintain it and take care of it so that the day that you do want to sell it, it's increased in value. You've bought in a good area. You bought because it had good cash flow. And again, try to buy from a motivated seller.
Okay, so 5 golden rules when buying investment property. You guys wanted to get to that before going into Wally's Weekly Wisdom. So Does that somehow weave its way into Wally's weekly wisdom?
Let's call it Wally and Cindy's weekly
Okay.
wisdom. Is that okay?
100%.
So there is a good story behind this. Let's talk about how Cindy and I have each made some mistakes when we violated or overlooked a couple of those golden rules.
Okay.
Cindy, I remember you telling me about a property you didn't buy in California. Can you share that?
Sure. We talked about things that are in demand, and I had the opportunity, and I think about this every time it comes up, to buy a property that was on 10 acres with a wall of windows that overlooked the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, my goodness.
And that home was $300,000. It was back in the 80s.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, I could have pressed myself to afford that, but instead I bought a house for $200,000 in a subdivision that didn't have a wall of windows overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
Well, you know what? If you would have bought that, you may not be in Oklahoma right now.
I know.
Probably wouldn't
Wally,
be
that
sitting
is
here with
good
My
for you,
whole
Wally.
life
Good
would
for
have
you.
changed.
Dave, we did the same thing about 15 years ago. We took a little home that we owned in Norman. We actually lived in it for several years.
Okay.
Sold that home to someone for $115,000. Here was the mistake that was made, though. It's in a great West Norman neighborhood, right beside Brookhaven. And today that home is worth $250,000, $260,000, $270,000. Now, we all know that values have gone up the last 2 or 3 years.
But that one had
was an
great
incredibly
appreciation.
good little potential for appreciation. That was a
Sure.
mistake on our part. What we wanted to do was take the equity and put that into a home that we were building. So we basically had maybe 30, 40,000 equity, maybe 50,000. But look today, that home is more than doubled in price. Sold it 12, 15 years ago for $115,000. Now that home today is worth $250,000, $260,000. That was, I don't mind ever coming forth and saying, I've made mistakes in my life. Cindy's on the Pacific Ocean also carries a little weight there also.
Oh, you're trying to pawn it off on her that she made the bigger mistake.
But maybe what we can do is share some of this on our show for our listeners and for their kids and grandkids. We're all going to make mistakes in life. Dave, you've heard me say before, I believe that that God made the windshield of the car bigger than the rear view mirror so that we're not always looking backward and we're moving forward.
I like that.
So that we're not focused on the mistakes that we've made in the past, which I've made them. Cindy's made one mistake in her life. And, but anything that we can help our listeners with and their friends, and that's why our shows are available online at wallytalkshouses.com.
Yes.
And you can scroll through the topics, download what you want, listen to what you want. A lot of content there, and we'd invite you to share with us.
I think you guys being candid about that shows that you have the experience. You've been around the block, so you've seen what works, what doesn't work from your own experience in investing and buying homes. You've been very successful, but you made a mistake or two, and that's going to help me. It's going to help other buyers, because if you didn't do that, you're going to go, so listen to me and do this.
Well, I know I'm not fantastic because Cindy tells me that daily just to keep me, on the level.
I think we've learned a lot, and you just can't replace experience.
And our customers will benefit from that, and that's our goal. As part of our show, it's learning. Hey, at the end of the day, we are in real estate, so we would love to serve you or your family.
Well, Wally would say that it's a mistake that he now does not have a vacation home in Los Angeles overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
With
He
a
would
wall
like
of
to go out there with a
windows.
wall of windows. But hey,
and a wife that works and just takes care of me so that I can sit and look at the ocean all day.
That's right.
absolutely.
She does a darn good job. So,
All right. Hey,
good teamwork.
if we weren't having a lot of fun already, it's time to talk about wacky but true real estate facts. And we saved this segment for late in the show today, and I'm looking forward to these fun facts about real estate. And what do you have for us?
So here's some fun things for our listeners to just get away from all the serious stuff we talk about in the show. So, Dave, did you know that in Scotland, homeowners typically paint their front door red to show that they're mortgage free?
Really?
So it was believed that painting the front door of your home red was a sign of prosperity and good fortune. So according to local folklore, homeowners would paint their front door red to signify that they'd paid off their mortgage and they were now debt-free.
I've seen some homes in my neighborhood that have red doors. Do I need to go knock on their doors and ask them about?
I guess you could ask several questions with a red door.
Well, no red lights. Red
No,
doors.
I was just going to say.
And red
no
light. That's a
red
scary
light.
topic. Let's move over. Dave, do you know that McDonald's is actually built on real estate and not hamburgers? So rather than focusing on food, McDonald's was initially founded as a real estate company, and the goal was to buy land and then lease it to franchisees. And this business model allowed McDonald's to grow rapidly and become one of the most successful fast food chains in the world, but because it was built on real estate, not hamburgers.
So I remember the movie The Founder.
If you haven't seen the movie The Founder, I challenge you. It's one of the most fascinating stories, right, Cindy?
That's right.
You've seen it with me. One of the most fascinating business stories, and actually a little bit sad for the guys that were running the McDonald's restaurant, the first one to make the hamburgers and what they were doing. So it's called The Founder. It's really interesting. Dave, here's another wacky fact for you. So 1 in 10 Americans sell their homes today due to paranormal activity. Some people insist that their homes are haunted. And according to a survey conducted by Zillow, about 1 in 10 Americans have sold their homes due to what they believed was paranormal activity. And it could include experiences such as seeing ghosts or supernatural beings, but it could include hearing strange noises or voices or feeling a presence inside the home.
I had that experience showing a house once that was across the street from a cemetery. And my customer got the weirdest feeling in that house and just said, I feel a presence here. I could never buy this house.
I have a really quick story about, I'm going to name him Scott.
Okay.
And he and his wife are excellent friends of mine. Very credible business professionals. So I go in and they said, we've had an unusual experience selling our home. And he said, Wally, we've known each other a long time. He said, I'm not any crazier than I ever was. And of course, he was never crazy. We've actually sat in our living room and heard noises upstairs when the kids weren't home. And you could literally hear footsteps going across the wood floors upstairs. And this has happened multiple times, going from one place in the hallway down the other. And he said, we've discounted that for years. So he said, I want to tell you about our first open house we did last Sunday. He said, my wife and I are standing, and the first person comes in, and as we greet them, there's the smell of flatulence. And he said, my wife looked at me, and I looked at her, and we shrugged our shoulders and let the person come in the home and start looking around, and we were trying to figure out who did it. And he said, we blew it off. They leave. Another couple walks in. We're standing right by the same stairway, and they come in and shake our hands, and there's that smell again. And he said, we opened the door into the stairway, and there's no smell there. He said, Wally, we're getting the feeling that maybe we're not supposed to sell this house, or that we really need to sell this house and get out.
That is a wild
This is an
story.
absolute true story. And Cindy, you know who I'm talking about.
I do,
We talked about this today. Totally credible. So quite a story. Also, Dave, here's a fun one.
Okay.
Did you know there's a secret apartment at the top of the Eiffel Tower? There's an apartment there that Gustave Eiffel, the chief engineer who engineered the Eiffel Tower, originally built the apartment to be used as a private office. So the apartment, which is now open to the public, consists of a bedroom, a bathroom, and a small sitting room.
I had no idea.
I wonder how much that would rent for.
Oh, absolutely. I wonder.
The rent on that one, I think, Cindy, Dave, would be sky high.
Oh, hey.
And let's talk about
ding,
the name
ding, ding.
Gustave Eiffel. Is that right?
Gustave Eiffel,
that
the
is
chief
wonderful.
engineer. Yeah, that's right.
That's cool. All right, we'll be back in just a few minutes to wrap the show up.
The market is shifting. Do you know what to do? If you're selling a home, you need to realize that market demand is changing, and it's changing now. More homes are coming on the market than homes that are actually selling, so the inventory is going up. What does rising inventory mean? Prices can soften. It's important you get on the train right now and understand what you need to do to sell a home. First of all, my guaranteed home sale program will create more demand for your home because I can buy someone else's home so that they can buy yours. If you're thinking about selling by owner, I can create more demand for your home than you can ever create on your own. I'm Wally Kerr, and I believe in aggressive marketing. My wife and I have done this for 36 years together, and we now have a team of 28 people. If you'd like to create more demand for your home so that your home will sell faster and for top dollar, give me a call today at 405-330-4000 at Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. I'd love to meet with you and discuss a strategy and plan for getting your home sold. Call me at 330-4000. I look forward to talking to you myself.
Finding the right mortgage can be stressful, from knowing which program fits your situation the best to identifying the best terms. Hi, I'm Chris Doke with Gateway Mortgage. I work closely with you every step of the way, from pre-qualification to helping you choose the home loan that's right for you. My promise is to provide transparency, timely communication, personal service, and closings on time. Call me today at 405-253-2276. That's 405-253-2276.
NMLS 984758. Gateway Mortgage, a division of Gateway First Bank. NMLS 7233. Equal housing lender.
Best Protect Roofing and Construction has been serving the Oklahoma community since 2017 with trusted professionals and a proven track record. Best Protect Roofing and Construction has the local knowledge to ensure every roofing project is compliant and hassle-free. They offer free roof inspections to assess damage, provide accurate quotes, and recommend the best solution for your home. Call today, 405-473-9599. Best Protect Roofing and Construction.
If you or a family member will be selling or buying a home and would like to schedule an appointment with Wally, call 405-330-3000 or go to wallysguarantee.com. Now back to the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally Kerr.
Well, Wally and Cindy, we got just a couple of minutes left. Any parting thought of wisdom as we wrap up this week's show?
Dave, I saw an article at MoneyWise this week that I definitely agree on. If you know someone who hasn't bought a home yet, maybe they got beat out over the last couple of years, when they were trying to buy, or maybe they weren't quite ready. It's been said if you waited until last year to buy a home or you're still renting, you're likely on the wrong side of what's called a widening wealth divide.
Okay.
And again, this came from MoneyWise.
Interesting.
So with home ownership still serving as the primary source of wealth for many families, it's become a symbol of the wealth gap between those who have and those who don't. So a median-priced home has become worth about $190,000 more on average from 2012 to 2022.
Wow.
Now, that's U.S.-wide. And so as a result, the net worth of a typical homeowner is about 40 times the net worth of a renter, according to an April report from the National Association of Realtors. And this analysis shows how homeownership is a catalyst for building wealth for people from all walks of life. And the chief economist at NAR likened a monthly mortgage payment to a forced savings account for homeowners.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Dave, the outlook for lower rates after talking to Chris, it looks bright. And based on some things we talked about on the show, when rates begin ticking down, demand will increase. There's going to be a lot of pent-up demand, and competition for owning an affordable home is going to increase. So with rates lower now than in the last couple of weeks, it might be the time to find those motivated sellers, and they may help you with closing costs. So it's still a great time to hop into homeownership and get started on building your own personal wealth.
I like that. Well, Wally, I went to WallyTalksHouses.com and I checked because we thought we were in the lower 40s. Our 44th show already. Can you believe that?
I've really enjoyed doing it with you, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah, more than I thought. I felt like we could, no, not you, not talking about you. It's just been very enjoyable to get in here Saturday and think about what we can offer to the public and how we can help them with knowledge about real estate, whether you're an investor, a first-time buyer, or whether you're buying your fourth home. And it's really been enjoyable. We can have a big celebration when we get to our one-year show.
Yes.
But always enjoy being here with you and all of the knowledge we're able to share.
And I think when you said that, what came to mind for me is the fact that there's so many topics. We
Yes.
thought we would run through topics and there would be nothing to talk about. But it's so interesting. Real estate, even when Wally and I go to parties, when people figure out that we own a real estate company, everyone has questions about real estate. Everybody's interested in real estate, and there's so many topics.
And we enjoy talking about it and really enjoy, again, being here with you on the weekends.
They go hand in hand because if you go to WallyTalksHouses.com or, of course, all the major podcast platforms, you can download the show. But when you go to WallyTalksHouses.com, it's all broken down by shows and topics. Real easy to find the topic quickly that you want to listen to and get some bona fide information on. And then that's going to hook you into joining us Saturdays here at 11 so you can listen to the most up-to-date information is, and then keep going back and get nuggets of more information. It's a great opportunity to just learn what real estate is about if you want to get into it from an investor side, or if you're really thinking about buying. So many tips that are going to give you a leg up so you can really take advantage of programs and rates and just the whole kit and caboodle is there.
Well, it's your biggest investment in most cases, so it pays to be knowledgeable about it. And yes, you can get all those tips on our show.
We'll look forward to seeing you back here next week, Dave.
Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally Kerr. Heard every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. and replayed on Sundays at noon here on 1520 a.m. and 95.3 FM KOKC. Wally's name is his promise. Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. To speak with Wally directly about selling your home or buying, call or text him to schedule an appointment at 405-330-3000, 405-330-3000, or go to wallysguarantee.com. That's wallysguarantee.com.